What's going on, guys? I'm Lakota from Meyer Mediums, and welcome to the first episode of a new series. In a recent video, I explained that while we were moving, I stumbled across a treasure in the basement of my childhood home. And that treasure is this. A book that I wrote whenever I was 14. If you know about the story, you can skip the intro and go right into what I'm about to do. But if you don't know what's up, this is a book called Trash Desert. It was written by me when I was, I think, 13 or 14. I'm not sure. Somewhere around there. It is, let's check, 153 pages long, which is, for a 14-year-old, I'm impressed. Good job, young me. You did things. Now, I don't remember anything about this book other than there's a guy in the desert and it's fantasy. It's fantasy. I do remember that. I know that I was actually really into fantasy at the time when I wrote this. Lord of the Rings was just coming out. Obviously the movies, not the books. So what had happened was I basically got depressed. I didn't know it at the time, but I got depressed and I just started writing because it's the only thing that made me feel alive. And I came up with this book. That's all I know. That's all I got. So what I decided to do was read this book out loud to everyone, blindly, not knowing what I'm going into. And what I'm expecting to find in this book is, well, a big bucket of cringe juice, because I was 14. I know what I was into at the time. I know how I talked at the time. And the thing was, I was really into this, clearly. So if I was really into it, I guarantee you that I was trying to make it sound as mature as possible, which, when you grow up and look back on, it's embarrassing. I'm gonna read. We'll go through a few chapters each episode of this series, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. I'm excited. Are you excited? Let's get the ball. Let's get the ball rolling. Trash Desert by Lakota Meyer. Okay, before we even go, I want to point out that this was so long ago that I had a friend, Kate Drummonds. She went through and edited this. I mean, red ink all over this thing. Not edit, proofread it. But I mean, dude, this is back whenever gel pens. She was so sweet. She numbered each page. I don't know if you can see on there. I don't know if it's gonna focus, but she numbered each page for me because I didn't, and she did it in sparkly gel pen. Thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. Chapter 1. Have you ever asked yourself, am I worth anything at all, or am I just trash, put on this earth with no purpose? I did. I never thought that I would amount to anything. I never thought that I would ever be accepted into society after what I had done. I was alone then, roaming the wastelands man had created, avoiding the rest of the world as I was ashamed and afraid. Ashamed of what I had done and afraid of the consequences. Would I ever be a man, or would I always be the coward that I was? The trash desert I was in used to be known as Eastern Philium. It was beautiful at one time, full of life, until the beasts came. The beasts, you haven't encountered anything scary until you are face to face with a junk dog or a stick figure. That's actually, stick figure sounds creepy. Yet there are more out there, more than I could name at this time. All the beasts came in and destroyed everything they touched. Men, women, and children, beasts of burden and pets, they all became food. The government came in and cleaned up as much as they could, but the deeper they got into all the rubbish, the more and more problems they had with the beasts. Few of the government men returned home. Those who did make it back were barely alive. I had heard that there were still colonies of people still living in this part of Philium. I did not think it was possible, though. I didn't even think I would survive much longer if all I had to live off of were bugs and the water from the small ponds I would find. The taste of the pond water was bitter as could be, and the taste of the crickets and grasshoppers I found were just as equally terrible. And the disgusting crunch of the bug's outer shell being broken by my teeth, then the squish of its warm, sticky insides being mashed up inside my mouth. I would rather have lived off of rotten meat and spoiled milk. I turned 20 on the 11th of October, It was a very lonely day for me, seeing as how none of my friends or future wife were there to celebrate with me. I decided that day that I would go out further into the desert to see if there was anything still out there, or if I had really just run away to lose myself in a dead civilization. I left what had been my home for nearly 3 weeks and 2 days after my birthday. I had been staying in an old rusted Volkswagen van with only the passenger seat left in it. The van was the only thing that had given me comfort for the time I had been out there, even though the floor which I had to sleep on was hard and cold and the seat had almost all of the upholstery torn off. I felt safe inside of it. I found out the ground was much more comfortable than the floor of the Volkswagen. The nights were cool, though. Not too warm, not too cold, and that was nice. It had always been too hot inside the van during the night. The next 3 mornings after I had left my temporary home, I would wake up extremely sore from lying on rocks. I would feel like this all day long. Sounds more like somebody just turned 30 instead of 20. And just slept in a normal bed. Anyway, I'm sorry, moving on. It was terrible. I was wishing I had never left home. I was wishing that I wouldn't have messed up my life in the first place. My description of hell was being the only one around, dust blowing everywhere, having a guilty conscience, and not being able to clear it. 3 days after I left the van, as I was traveling, I heard something. I couldn't see well, for it was about 11 at night, and it was cloudy. I heard heavy walking. I didn't know what it was at first, but I could feel that whatever it was wanted to harm me. I stopped walking. I was dead silent, and so was the rest of the earth around me. Not one thing made a sound. The crickets even stopped chirping. I was standing right next to a junk pile. At least there would be something I could use to climb up if attacked. Maybe I could escape that way. I took out my lighter and lit it. There was still not much light, but enough to reflect off of the eyes of a junk dog standing 20 feet away. My eyes became a little bit more adjusted. I could see that this animal was very large. The beast stood about 5 feet at the shoulder and about 2 feet across the chest. I am estimated it weighed at least 600 pounds. Does that add up? 5 feet, 2 feet, 600 pounds. Damn. I could see sharp metal shards sticking out of its body in different areas, glinting in the dim light. I noticed one distinguishing thing about this beast. It had one metal shard sticking out of its head. It was like one long point while I was looking at him head on. Then he turned a little, and I could see now that it was not one long point. This metal shard ran all the way down its neck, like a long razor blade. My eyes had adjusted even more. I could see even more muscle then, and figured that this beast weighed much more than I had thought. I was scared. More scared than I had ever been in my life. The beast started walking toward me, its feet hitting the ground hard. I didn't know what to do. All I could do was stand there. It was getting closer. Many thoughts were rushing through my head. Thoughts like, what to do? What would happen if I died? Would anyone care? The thought that I would never get to tell my fiancée, Stephanie, that I loved her, even though I probably wouldn't get to anyway. I was remembering all the great times we had together. Her beautiful curly brown hair, her blue eyes, her pink lips. I was remembering everything about her beautiful body. Oh, even her little ears. All right, made it weird, man. It was then that I realized how much I loved her. How I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. You probably should have realized that whenever you pop the question if she's your fiancé. Moving on, I then made an oath to myself that with God as my witness, I would find my way back to her, even if I had to wander around this desert until I was too old to walk without a cane. I had something to live for, and I wasn't going to let myself die. I was coming back now to the realization that there was a junk dog about 3 yards away, wanting to have me for his chew toy. I turned quickly to find a place in the junk pile to climb up. Luckily, I found a one fast. I started as quickly as I could to the top. I could hear the footsteps still, only now they were fast. I was about halfway to the top, and I heard the beast leave the ground. Then I felt the pile quake. I was climbing as fast and as hard as I could. It was still a little late. I felt the mouth wrap around the balls of my feet. Then the teeth, which were ground to needle-sharp points from gnawing on metal, pierced the soles of my shoe and sank into my foot. I screamed in agony. Then, as quickly as the beast had sunk its teeth into my foot, I pulled them out. I was in absolute pain from the bite, but a little bit relieved to hear the monster's feet hit the ground. Still, I climbed quickly to the top. When I got there, I turned to look down, praying the beast would not try to climb up. I could hear the large canine's breathing still, heavy and fast. I knew he was excited. I checked my watch. It said 11:15 p.m. I couldn't believe that all of this had happened in 15 minutes or less. It felt like hours had passed. I stayed up until a little past 1 a.m. listening to the sound of the beast's heavy breathing die down. At about 12:30 a.m., I couldn't hear the monstrous canine's steps anymore. Footsteps. I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore. I slowly began to drift off. I was thinking about how to get home and face the consequences of what I had done. I didn't care what I did. I had to talk to Stephanie again. The next day I woke up at about 10 a.m. I was hungry. I saw a small lizard on the roof of the car I was laying on. I reached over quickly and grabbed it. It wasn't much, about 5 inches from its head to the end of its broken tail. I quickly killed the reptile and put it in the pocket of my jeans. I stood on the hood of the car and peered down. The beast was gone, and I was hoping gone for good. I figured from now on I would sleep on top of the junk piles. My foot was as sore as ever. I took off my shoe. It was swollen, but the lacerations weren't as deep as I thought they would be. To tell the truth, they weren't deep at all. I figured I would be limping for a while, though. I climbed down the pile. I got on the ground and looked around for a little bit, just to make sure it was definitely safe. I set up a little spot in the dirt, used a couple of things from the pile, and made a small fire. Within the next couple of minutes, I was roasting the lizard. I ate that and a little grasshopper I found a couple minutes after cooking the reptile to a crisp. I put out the fire, threw all the leftover stuff into the pile, and started walking the way that I thought was home. I walked for many weeks, surviving as well as I could. I was so tired and hungry. I did not want to admit to myself that I had been lost since the third day I'd been out in the trash desert. On the 13th of November, I collapsed. I was so tired and weak. I was surprised I'd lasted this long. I didn't know where I was. I was lost, and it would take a miracle to save me now. And that's when it hit me. I suddenly realized how foolish I was. I had been in this godforsaken land for over 4 months and never even realized that there was junk around me. I mean, I knew it was there, but I never realized I could probably use some of it. I stood up and walked to the nearest junk pile. There was a car. I took a rock I had found not far away and crushed the latch off of the trunk. I took a long piece of metal and pried it open. It took about an hour to get it all the way open, but the inside there was absolutely nothing of use. I saw jumper cables, empty beer cans, a few shotgun shells scattered around, a baby doll, an old pizza box, nothing I could use. Well, so much for that, I said as I was sitting down. I was still hungry, and I had been out of water for about a day and a half now. I was praying that I would come upon a small pond again soon. I wouldn't last long without water. I got up and started walking away from the junk pile. Wait a minute, I said, thinking. I limped back to the pile. I took a good look at it. There were old boards, a bed frame, a smashed nearly in half couch about a quarter of the way up the junk mound, an old hairdryer, and a hunting boot. My mind was swirling. Yes, I had it now. This pile, it used to be a home. Home where a family used to live, a home consisting of a kid remembering the doll and a mother and father who hunted. That was it. I knew I could use some of the stuff from the pile now. I started throwing stuff onto the ground in the late evening. I was picking things up, taking a glance at them, then throwing them on the ground if not usable. Much of it wasn't. I searched for food and tools. By about 8:30 p.m., I had a small pile of usable objects. I had found a can opener, a small rusty steak knife, and a backpack. Not much, but they were usable. I also found about $6 in change. I could not find a gun anywhere. I searched every place I could. There were no guns that I could see. I sighed. To the beasts with it, I said. Ooh, I was coming up with my own slang. And what a coincidence! It was at about that time that I learned I was being watched. I could see it out of the corner of my eye. Just behind me and a little to the right, about 7 feet away, there was a junk dog. I turned my head slowly. It wasn't the same beast I had seen just a while back. This junk dog was much smaller, about 3 feet at the shoulder and about a foot across the chest. I would say that it was just a pup, maybe weighing about 150 pounds. This beast was not the same color as the junk dog I had encountered. This beast was dark brown, the other was jet black. Keep it straight, folks. Also, this one did not have as much metal jutting out from its body. There was nothing really distinguishing about this beast in particular. Still, it was threatening. The canine came towards me. I had nowhere to run. I couldn't make it up the junk pile. I was by fast enough to escape him. I was by fast enough to escape him. But wait! I was standing next to the trunk of that car, and luckily the trunk was open a bit. I stuck my hand inside. The junk dog was taking his time getting to me. It was drooling. I could not see inside, so I had to feel my way around the trunk. There had to be something to protect myself in there, and there was. I felt the baby doll's legs and then a corner of the pizza box. The junk dog was close, about 5 feet away. I grabbed the baby doll out of the trunk. I took off one of the plastic legs, threw it over the dog's head, a good 4 yards. I really like to explain distance in this book. He chased it. I watched him pick it up in his mouth and chomp it to pieces. Oh man, that could be me in a couple minutes, I thought. I had to do something fast. The beast looked back at me and started to walk faster. I took an arm off now and threw it. The junk dog caught it in his large mouth, chomped once, and it was gone. It didn't stop walking. I threw another limb. It caught it again and did the same thing. I backed up against the trunk. My arm found its way inside by accident, and it fell on a shell. I picked it up. I took it out. It was a 12-gauge, 3-inch Magnum shot shell. The beast was where it had started at first, and it was still walking at a fast pace. I threw the rest of the baby doll high over its head. The beast jumped up into the air, a good 6 feet, and caught the rest of the doll. Its teeth smashed the toy in the air. The monster wanted to show off to its prey before it killed it. To look smart and strong. Well, I was about to make him look really dumb. As soon as the dog's feet hit the ground, I threw the shot shell at its face. The junk dog did just what I expected. It chomped the shell. Now, there was about a 25% chance that my idea would work, and God was with me because that 25% chance of a miracle came to be. One of the junk dog's teeth hit the right spot on the shell and blasted in its mouth. The beast's jaw was blown asunder from the rest of its head. There was a big gurgling whimper from the monster's throat. It staggered up to me. "Nice catch," I said. Then... All right, starting over. It staggered up to me. "Nice catch," I said. Then I looked at it. In its big brown eyes, they showed sadness and defeat. They were begging eyes. I had seen those eyes before. They were like the eyes when I was in court. The eyes that said, "I'm sorry, and if I had the chance to do it again, I wouldn't." They said, "I'm sorry for stealing, for my insolence and my destruction. I won't do it again." I shook all those thoughts from my head. I looked at the junk dog. It was dead now. I was safe. I felt sorry for it at first, but then realized that there was enough meat to satisfy me for days. I took out that rusty knife and began to cut into the monster's body. I was going to eat well tonight. Chapter 3. I woke up at about 7 a.m. in the morning. Well, if it's 7 a.m., obviously it's in the morning. Okay. I was still full from the night before. The meat was good. It was like beef. The only thing that was not heavenly about the meat was that I had to stop chewing every few seconds to spit out pieces of metal. Otherwise, it was the best food I had eaten for months. I climbed down from the pile I was on. I walked over to the pile that had the car trunk. I walked up to the car and opened the back up. Obviously this is the same car that we got the shotgun shells from. I gathered up all the shells in the trunk. I put them in the backpack and began walking. I also decided that I would mark my trail from here on out. I grabbed up a couple of metal pieces and figured that every 300 steps I would stick the pieces out of the ground. There wasn't exactly a shortage of large pieces of metal out here, so I didn't have to worry about running out of markers. I walked on. I walked many, many days. I counted that I had put down over 600,000 pieces of metal into the ground. I wonder if I did the math if that would add up. I looked into at least 756 junk piles for things to use. I did find a few things. A pair of scissors, a disposable razor, and another knife in better shape than the one that I had found previously. I also found many canned foods in the junk piles. Corn, beans, soup, a couple cans of fruit, dog food. I loaded my bag as full as possible with these foods. I kept on checking piles of junk for items and food and slamming metal into the ground for many more months. I had lost track of almost all time because I had fallen off a junk pile about halfway up and crushed the face of my watch on a metal plate on the ground. Sucks to be you, dog. I also thought that I had broken my wrist, but I was using it less than an hour later. Every once in a while, I would see a junk dog off in the distance, but they never bothered me much. I always had my shot shells with me. Although the beasts never bothered me, I couldn't help but think of all the stories that were told of the beasts and the deformed animals that came from the 8th level. I didn't let it get to me much. I knew the 8th level was non-existent. It was just a place that somebody made up to make the stories that they told the children more interesting. It was the place that all the beasts originated from, and the new ones were being created all the time. Nobody knows where the monsters came from, but that couldn't be true. More people believe that the beasts, like the junk dog and stick figure, and the lizard people and the night stalkers, and more, were just scientific mess-ups that the government couldn't keep under control. Still, the 8th level was interesting to think about, even though it wasn't real. It was on these nights when I saw the beasts in the distant horizon, I would think about my life before I came out here into the wastelands, how it was a great life, and how so many people were my friends, how I had so much, and in 1 minute it was all gone. How? If I hadn't come out here, I would have probably been beheaded by now, or maybe hung. I don't know what the penalty for taking another's life is. Maybe I would have been burned at the stake. I don't know. All I do know is that right now I would rather have any of those punishments over this torture. Then I would think about Stephanie and her tiny ears. I would pray that she would always remember me, even if I never came back to her. I would cry sometimes because she was the only thing that I loved more than myself. I also pray that if I did come back to her, that she would still love me. Mostly I pray that she was happy. And that if she was ever hurt by anyone, that the one that hurt her was punished beyond all belief. Maybe that's why I was out here, because I had hurt her. Because I was an embarrassment when I had gone to court. I had embarrassed her because she didn't think I was capable of being so low. She had such a distorted view of who I really was. Dog, you really needed to open up to Stephanie a little bit more, because it doesn't sound like you all communicated too much. And then, after thinking all of these things, I would drift off to sleep and dream that everything was good, back to normal, the way it should be without all the mess-ups. But I would also have bad dreams, dreams that I was being attacked, mauled and torn apart by junk dogs and stick figures and lizard people. Horrible dreams that my fiance, friends, and family wanted me dead. They wanted to see my head roll away from the guillotine, or see my face get more and more purple from the constricting of the rope around my neck. These dreams were haunting and scared me very badly. These were the dreams that made me fear going back to civilization. All right, one more chapter. Chapter 4. I had counted 13 months that I had been in the trash desert Phelium, give or take a few weeks. It was hard to get along out in the desert without my watch. I hadn't encountered many more beasts since the junk dog I had killed. The closest call I had was when I was sleeping on top of a junk pile and he was at the bottom sniffing around. Perhaps for me, or perhaps for another small animal. Maybe a lizard. The beast didn't bother me though. One day, in the 14th month, I was in the desert. I was digging in a junk pile just because there was nothing to do. I came across a guitar case. It wasn't battered too badly. I was hoping the same for the treasure inside. The case was beautiful. Black, hard plastic. It said Gibson on the top. I grabbed the silver latches, excited to find such a great item on a pile of rubbish. I was also afraid at the same time, afraid that whatever was inside might be broken up or burned, or that it might not have strings. I popped the lid and looked inside. What I saw made me so happy, I nearly cried. Inside was a beautiful Gibson. I didn't know what style, but it was a glorious acoustic. Not a scratch on it. I was so happy. I picked it up. I loved the feel of the fretboard. It had a dark brown neck and headstock and a light brown face. It was light, very light, almost like I was holding air. Buddy, you've never held an actual Gibson. Oh, I guess that's not true. The Gibson Hummingbird was pretty darn light, and I'll bet you anything that's probably what I was trying to go for here. That was like the guitar, the acoustic that we wanted as teens, me and my guitar playing friends. On to the story though. I strummed a G chord. It was a little bit out of tune, nothing I couldn't fix by ear. I looked in the case again. There was a couple folders full of paper. I looked in the folders for a while. There was sheet music and tablature, a couple good songs. I found a copy of The Wall, a Pink Floyd song, Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, and other things like hymns. I remembered my old band, the Distorted View Symphony. That's actually a pretty dope band name. Those concerts were the greatest things that ever happened to me on Saturday nights. Me standing up at the front of the stage, playing lead guitar like no other. My improvised solos so fast I didn't even remember what I played and nobody could figure them out. I felt so happy up on stage with the rhythm player, my best friend Joe standing next to me on the right, and the drummer Jonathan, spelled ridiculously weird, on the left, banging out on his equipment, keeping perfect beat. The lead singer, though, he was probably the most respectable out of all of us. Beckett was so quiet and mysterious off stage. You wouldn't think he could sing. He was so dark. And by that, I don't mean he was gothic. I mean you didn't know who he was. He was honorable, though. He would stand up for anybody. One time, after a concert, we walked outside, and over by this tree, some guy was yelling at his girlfriend. Nobody really paid attention to it, not even Beckett. Not until he hit her. This guy was yelling at his girl for spending too much money, or something like that. She wasn't saying anything really, just a lot of buts, and I didn't. The guy was, I think, just being a jackass. And in the middle of all of it, he backhanded the girl in the face. We stopped to watch. He started yelling again, and then hit her again. The second time, Beckett walked up to the guy. The girl ran off. It was really quiet. We couldn't hear what they were saying. Then the guy pushed him back. Beckett didn't move much. That other guy was a bit small compared to Beckett, who bench pressed about 450. The guy then started to yell obscenities while Beckett just stood there, the wind blowing his shoulder-length brown hair. Stephanie or Jonathan? I'm starting to wonder. Finally, the guy pushed Beckett for the last time. This time, Beckett moved a lot. Beckett knocked the guy to the ground in 2 quick moves, a punch to the gut and a knee to the face. The guy just laid on the ground and moaned while we all walked away, laughing and talking again. Those were the days. I wonder if after I left, the band found a new lead guitarist, or if they still had those concerts. I wondered if I would ever find out. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sucked in. I'm into it. I am right there with. I never said the main character's name. Not once, actually, in 4 chapters. We have no idea what this guy's name is. But we know that Stephanie has sexy little ears, and Jonathan might be her competition. Anyway, this was really fun. I enjoyed this very much. It's surprising that I thought whenever I started reading this that like I would start remembering more, you know, and I did. I don't remember any of this. I want to read some of the notes. Like, okay, great beginning chapter, Cody. Nobody calls me Cody anymore. Don't call me Cody. It sets the mood perfectly, yet is still suspenseful. Clearly, I didn't know anything about writing, but, you know, cut it down to 6 forms of thing. Cut it down to 1 forms of stuff. Apparently, I said thing and stuff way too much, and I would agree with that critique. Your chapters are kind of short, but still good. I kind of picked up that you're going day by day, which is good, but spice up this day a little bit. Slow days like this bore your readers. They did, and yeah, it's true. I repeat it a lot. I also like that I threw in what I knew. You know, I play guitar, and that's when I was really starting to get into classic rock and stuff. And all right, well, that's going to do it for today's reading of Trash Desert. I hope that you enjoyed it, and please leave me comments down below. I want to know what you think. I want to know what your thoughts are on this. And you be as harsh as you want. I understand. I'm not going to take offense. Like, I get it. I know what this is. I know what I'm reading. But I think there's some good stuff going on. If I can get through this, if this holds my attention all the way to the end, I might rewrite this as a like an actual young adult novel. Now being a little bit better at writing. Not much, but a little bit. And I've got book friends too who can edit and proofread now. That's great. I might even hit up Kate again because she slogged through this, man, and she put in some good notes. Well, thank you guys for watching, or listening rather, and if you wouldn't mind, check out the video I posted earlier this week. It's me doing a blindfolded painting challenge. Fun! All right, next week we're going to pick up in chapter 5. I'll see you then. Have a great week.